RichBody, health, fitness, lifestyle.
Welcome to the RichBody Podcast. I am your host, Richie Carouse. Follow the RichBody Podcast online at RichBody and at richbody.ca. My guest is recognized as one of the best researchers and product formulators in the dietary, supplement, and natural health product industry. He has earned the moniker, the Supplement Godfather, because of his in-depth knowledge and ability to continually develop and discover new and exciting dietary ingredients and products. Don Gauvreau, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I'm excited to have you on, man. Heard
Yeah,
a lot
me
of
too,
great
man.
things about you. I've known about you for a lot of years in the industry, and I'm really, really excited that we could finally get the chance to have a conversation and shoot the shit about everything that's going on.
Yeah, I know. At least this is one positive thing coming out of the whole isolation and COVID. Like, we're making a connection that we
Yep.
might not have been able to really make, because we'd probably both be so busy. You busy in Ontario and me busy out here, and we might not cross paths,
Yep.
for another couple of years or something. So at least
Exactly.
you know what I mean? At least this is a positive. And I've actually made some connections with some new friends via, things like this. So
Yeah.
I mean, you got to make the most out of this situation, right? As I'm sure you're doing.
Absolutely, man. You can take the positives out of it, and you're absolutely right. I've made a ton of new connections online, like people like yourself who I've known about in the industry, or known through other people. And you're reaching out, and you're messaging people, and you're talking to people like this, and it really gives you that time and that opportunity. Because typically on a normal day, at 8:00 at night, you'd still be home doing something, but you'd never think about making the time to sit down and do something like this, right? So
Yeah, no, that's exactly.
this is awesome. So how you been making out here throughout this whole process?
To be honest, it's been hasn't really affected me too much. I'm starting to get a bit I just kind of want to get out and get back to the normal
Yeah.
day-to-day things. But I've been really so busy that I've just been busy working on some new stuff. I've been busy I have an 8.5-year-old son, so when he's with me, it's very, very busy, obviously. So yeah, it's just been, and I live right in the middle of the forest, like in the near the
Yeah, I
trails and
see your
stuff.
pictures online all the time. It looks so
Yeah,
awesome.
so I've been outside like a lot, and I've almost been outside, like doing stuff outside a little bit more than normal, because I force myself to, set that
Yep.
that routine each day to get outside. So I've been pretty fortunate, to be honest, with this whole situation and stuff. So.
Yeah. And you're probably, I mean, you're always doing a ton of research, but now you're probably just really buckled down and doing a lot of research. And I see a lot of the stuff you're posting online, and I've talked to, I had Aaron on the podcast a couple weeks ago.
Oh yeah, awesome.
Yeah. And we were talking about all the products and the interesting stuff that you and her were working on.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's been a really busy time. Even just doing like these various Zoom meetings I've been doing. I was supposed to do an in-person psychedelic integration therapy training. I was supposed to do it actually in Toronto back at the beginning of April, and then all that got canceled because of the COVID stuff. So we ended up doing it through an online Zoom presentation, much like this, but there was like maybe 60 people in the course.
Yeah.
And that was really cool. So I've been doing like a lot of like kind of educational stuff like that. Online conferences as well have been popping up, especially in the psychedelic community. There's been a lot of
interest in that right now.
Yeah, the psychedelic community is it's a tight knit community, but it's a really open and caring community, and people are really willing to share their information, share their experiences, and yeah. So I've noticed that I've been really getting into that area over the last couple of years. And before the COVID stuff, I was attending a lot of different meetings, a lot of different charity functions, things like that.
Yeah.
And that was amazing, and in meeting all these people. But the online side of things has evolved too. So I've just been really just kind of hunkered down, like looking at research online, but also connecting with a lot of people, and just through discussions and anecdotal information has been extremely valuable, especially for psychedelic stuff, because it's so new, and even the cannabis stuff too, I mean, that area of research is really still like just in its infancies.
Yeah, especially like you said in the psychedelics, that anecdotal stuff is important because, like you said, it is a tight knit community. You're not going to find a huge amount of resources that are going to give you that information, right? So connecting with those people and knowing what they do, and especially like you said, like the cannabis industry is as big as it might seem. Like I live right here in Leamington, Ontario, and we're pretty much, if we're not already, we're going to be the cannabis industry of Canada. We're already the tomato capital of Canada. And it's exploding out here. I mean, you've got, acres and acres of greenhouses here growing cannabis. And, a lot of the supplement companies now are, researching and getting into the CBD and the CBD oil and stuff. And what have you done in the CBD part of things? I know I've read online that you've done some stuff with supplement research and all that kind of stuff like that. So where are you with that?
Yeah, so I've been working on various product development. So that's kind of been my focus, is developing various different products with a focus on CBD, but not just exclusively looking at that, because as I started to like really research CBD more and look at developing various products for different companies and some of my own products as well. The thing that I realized is there's so much more to cannabis, as I'm sure you know, than there is. Like CBD is just one small aspect, and CBD gets so much great press and such positive media, which is great. But there's THC. You could argue that THC has more research support behind it at this point in terms of medicinal benefits. And THC, I feel like it almost gets a bit of a bad name because it was legalized recreationally. And people are buying it now in Canada and other places in the world for recreational purposes. So I feel like it's almost kind of overlooked from a medicinal purpose. So that's something that I've kind of started to look at more, and even just talking to people and doing seminars and advising people on different concoctions. I really encourage them to be open to THC. Like I just had a friend, like a really close friend of mine, he got diagnosed with cancer just a couple months ago. And so he went through the whole, and he's like actually he's totally fully recovered and everything now. This is basically a 4-month process. And he went through chemotherapy, 4 like really hardcore cycles. And I had him on an oil, like a super high THC oil that I basically custom created for him. And he swore by it. Like, and he was eating, he maintained a decent weight. He was eating a lot. He was able to sleep. He was able to rest. But he said like all those benefits were great. And that was, strictly from this high THC, high CBD oil. But he said the real benefits for him were the mental benefits. He said that was the hardest thing about going through chemo, which now I've heard from a few other people that I've spoken with about this, is that going through chemo physically it's just destroying your body. But the worst part is the mental aspect, is just the thought of, like he said, you could actually feel your body is like you're killing yourself by taking this stuff. So he said the cannabis oil, he said it just had this overall calming effect, and it really eased his mind. And that was the most, he didn't care about feeling nauseous or anything like that. He said the easing of the mind was the most. That's
the first time I've ever actually heard that. You hear a lot of they take it for the pain relief, and the calming of the body and the aches and pains. But yeah, I never really actually thought of the mental aspect of it.
Yeah, I actually heard that from Tommy Chong, the actor, the activist guy. Yeah. So he had cancer, and that's what I read that somewhere a while ago. He wrote an article about, or he was interviewed in an article, and that's what he said. He said he smoked marijuana, like he actually smoked it, which I don't know. Only Tommy Chong could get away with that at the hospital, right? He probably had a private, section, but he said he smoked marijuana the whole time that he was getting the chemo, and he said that's what he said. He goes, I didn't care about the pain. That was irrelevant to me. He goes, it was all mental, easing the mind and relaxing the mind.
Wow.
And so that's when, that's why it was kind of reminding me of my friend too, and he experienced the same thing. So.
And when you talk about a high level of THC in the oil, what are you talking milligram wise?
So milligram wise, I mean, you could take up to 500 to 1,000 milligrams of THC a day, depending on your
Wow.
condition.
Okay.
Now that's a lot.
Because what is the like, and this is where everybody's mind goes when you think THC, you think you're going to get stoned. So where is that level where you're going to get stoned? What milligram?
So that's the thing with any type of edible or oral. It's so individualistic. Like, it's so about the person. Like for example, even you being like a really big guy, you could do an edible and it could be such a low dose and you could get, knocked across the head with it.
Yeah.
That's the kind of the one tricky thing about the oils. The one thing that is different between smoking and like edibles and oils is you develop a tolerance to the intoxicating effects very quickly. So as soon as you take one, even if you're doing this recreationally or whatever, if you take edibles one day, the next day, if you take the exact same amount, you're not going to have nearly the same high feeling. Yeah, for most people. And you will, and
you adapt that quickly.
Yeah, you will begin to adapt even after one day. Everybody's different, but over the course of a week, you could scale up your dosage from, say 10 milligrams of THC all the way up to 100 milligrams by the end of the week, if you titrate it up properly. That's one of the things. One of the cannabis veterans, activists, I guess you'd call him, Rick Simpson. He developed a cannabis oil, and it's a really famous oil named after him. It's called Rick Simpson oil, and it's a specific extraction process that he used. It was an alcohol extraction process, and he swore by it. He had cancer himself, and he started making the oil and giving it away to people. He swore that it would cure cancer and fight cancer. There's a lot of research to show that the THC is more of a potent, or just as much of a potent cancer killer as CBD. But that's the one thing with the oil, is you can really build up that tolerance. And so I encourage people that, if you do have those serious conditions, it's definitely something worth exploring. I'm not pushing, I'm not pushing anything on anybody, but it's definitely, it's definitely something worth exploring. Any type of alternative medicine is really, I think, is a better alternative to pharmaceutical drugs. Yeah. And I would always encourage anybody to look to alternative medicine as a first option. And then, but most people generally go to pharmaceuticals first, or that's where their doctor will steer them. Yeah. It's the pharmaceuticals first, because they're going to get their kickbacks and this, that, and the other. Yeah. So I always encourage people, look to the alternative first, look to natural medicine, look at the body as a holistic creature, and heal it in its totality, as opposed to trying to just isolate, something. And that's where Western and Eastern medicine kind of clash a bit.
Absolutely. What's something else? Like, I mean, when you talk about the mind calming of the cancer patient, that was something new that I've heard. What's something else that people don't know, or they don't hear about or read about, that THC also can help with all the research that you've done? Like,
well, actually, one very interesting thing, and this is, some people might think it's controversial, or maybe some people think this is wrong to even explore this, but anorexic, anybody that has anorexia, THC could be used. I'm definitely not recommending this, but it's something that, I would definitely consider. And I know of one person, like a real, human being, that has successfully, used cannabis to help break through anorexia. And, they're still in like somewhat of a recovery, it's still a work in progress, but they were almost dead.
Okay, so in your opinion, how...
Well, that's really interesting to me.
That's extremely interesting. That's what I want to know. Like, in your opinion, how would that help someone who's anorexic or...
Well, I mean, the one thing is just the appetite, the increasing of the appetite. And you just, I mean, I don't know if you smoke or you consume.
I have.
Yeah. I mean, you can get the munchies pretty hardcore, and it can basically be uncontrollable in certain types of strains and stuff. Can give you the uncontrollable munchies. So I think that's obviously one aspect of it. I think the anti-anxiety effects could be part of it too. There's even spiritual effects, a lot of people use, and this is something new that I've learned over, the last year or two, getting more into the psychedelic area in those communities, is cannabis has like a real spiritual side to it. I've always believed that myself, but I didn't realize that that was a more of a wide spread belief, and people use it, greatly for meditation and many other things. So yeah, I think it's more of a holistic approach to healing and treating something. It's not isolating one specific thing. It's cannabis and plant medicine and mushrooms. They're more of a holistic approach to healing the body as a whole.
I think, I mean, obviously there's a lot of information out now on, now that it's legal, and cannabis and THC and CBD, but I think because of the taboo or the stigma around THC, CBD is so much easier to talk about from a point of view, from whether it's a supplement company, whether it's, anybody online promoting it, it's easier to promote CBD because there's really no taboo around it. It's that taboo that's still around THC. And I think, as the information gets out, as people like yourself and researchers put the information out like this and start to make people understand that there's so much more available with THC, it'll take some time to get over that stigma.
Definitely. And that's actually, you make a good point there, because one thing, even like my parents, they're kind of that age demographic. They're like around 70 or so, but they're like, they're really young, young in heart and stuff, and they're pretty vibrant and active still. But they're kind of that demographic, that age group where, cannabis is,
still bad, right?
It's the devil's lettuce. And,
devil's lettuce. Yeah.
Yeah. And, my dad's a little more open-minded to, but still, there's still that, all that, the bad press that it got back then. So I wanted to get them. So my mom has like a lot of knee issues and that. So I wanted her to start using CBD. So I first got her on the CBD isolate oil, which is just, straight up CBD isolate mixed into a carrier oil like MCT coconut oil. And so there's zero THC in there, but there's also zero anything else in there of the plant. So it still provides benefits, CBD isolated, the isolated form, but the full spectrum form of CBD is much better. And the full spectrum form, I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but it's just the complete plant profile. So it's more in its crude form. And so it has all the other cannabinoids in there in trace amounts, and it has a trace amount of THC in there too, along with a bunch of other natural terpenes and flavonoids, and even a bit of chlorophyll. So it really has like what's called the entourage effect, and really has a complete effect and delivers much more medicinal benefits than an isolated CBD, or even an isolated THC too. And that's like, that's why I always encourage people to use, if you're going to use THC in a medicinal, for truly medicinal benefits, then use something like a Rick Simpson oil, or use more of a full spectrum THC based oil too. So you get the real full benefits. And that's a way that I introduced THC to my parents, is through the full spectrum CBD oil. Because I explained to them, I said, listen, there's, in this whole dropper here, there's 1 milligram of THC, and you're only going to be taking half the dropper. So you're getting half a milligram of THC, which is going to have, basically negligible, no effects, no intoxicating effects on you, but it's going to work in conjunction with the CBD and all the other cannabinoids in there to deliver more medicinal benefits, to help reduce inflammation, to help reduce the pain in your knees and all that. So once I explained it to them like that, boom, they're okay with it. So you're exactly right. It just requires that education, that talking, and
it is. And we have to, people like yourself have to keep putting that information out there, because I think there's so many more benefits that people just aren't looking at yet. And like you said, it's still in its infancy. I mean, you're still seeing cannabis operations, people look at it, and I know just from here in town, there's some that are going out of business due to whatever's going on now, or it hasn't gotten off the ground yet. I think it's still in its infancy that we're, I think, 8 to 10 years away from this being a full blown industry. I mean, it got a lot of hype when it came out. Everybody started, whoever could get, the approvals to build and start growing, they did, but without having all, like, I don't know in BC, but here in Ontario, we don't have a lot of stores yet. I mean, just here in where I live, there's one store in the entire region. So, until they get those out and start being able to sell it to the public, it's not going to be that widely available yet, right?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, out here, I mean, the gray market or black market or whatever it's called, the open market, the craft market.
Yeah.
I think it still does very well out here, especially online.
Yeah.
I know that. I mean, I purchased stuff from some of these like online dispensaries on the island because I know that I know the product that they're growing is just superior quality stuff. So I know that there's still that kind of battle going on a bit. And I think all of that stuff will hopefully work its way out. But I know here in BC, there are a lot of original craft growers, and especially on the Vancouver Island, that are amazing at what they do. Yeah. And I think they've maybe been a bit shut out by, politics and things like that. So I definitely have a soft spot for those people. And I definitely appreciate the fine products they're making.
Absolutely. So going back to, what you mentioned about, with the spiritual aspect of it, because I've read a ton about, cannabis and the mushrooms being used way back, even in the Indian days, as spiritual. They used it in all of their prayers and their, all the spiritual things that they did. And, in this day and age with, meditation becoming huge, I mean, it's hugely popular. And I also, as an athlete, I have heard tons of people, I've yet to try it myself, but I've heard a lot of athletes use it, even before training, during training, or after training for that mind effect, where I know I've had bodybuilders tell me that they've smoked before training and they get that focus and that zone. You get in that zone in the gym. From my own experience, I can't see that how I would get that. I'm one of those paranoid types, so I get kind of paranoid. But that's kind of where I see a huge benefit for that. Not only for athletes, but for average everyday people. If you could get to a point where you can find that right amount for yourself and for your body, to where you're not completely high where you don't know what's going on, but you've got that calming effect going on, that's a huge benefit. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that's where, I think what kind of fits right into what you described there is really microdosing mushrooms. Because that's kind of exactly what you really just described there to me. Is you just, like, that's what microdosing really feels like. I don't know if you've ever tried microdosing mushrooms or anything. Mushrooms, I never have. Cannabis, weed, yeah, I have. But mushrooms, no, I haven't. But I'm becoming more and more interested in it because, like yourself, I research a lot, I read a lot, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and even my doctor here is getting involved with it now too. So he tells me a lot about it. So it's so intriguing to me because that's the aspect of it that I want to know about and get that feeling, because they've got so many things out now. I mean, you've got like guys taking, modafinil and Adderall and all that kind of stuff for that focus that, but with mushrooms like cordyceps and lion's mane and all that kind of stuff, and, with microdosing, psilocybin and everything, it's out there. People just don't know what it is. Again, there's that taboo with the mushrooms, right? Yeah, I think like out here in BC, microdosing and even still like just psilocybin mushrooms in general it's almost like an underground cult industry is starting to boom out here. But for good reason, because the microdosing, I mean, it has tons of benefits. I mean, so you're taking such a small dose of a psilocybin mushroom in like a capsule form. It's such a small dose that it's like subperpetual. So there's no intoxicating effects. There's no, hallucination, nothing like that at all. And if you have your dosage right, if anything, you're going to be more laser focused. You're going to be able to think better. Just communicate better, deal with people better, be happier, be smarter, just all around better flow to your day. And that is the real benefit of microdosing for someone, that just wants to improve day-to-day life, improve performance, be kind of like a superhuman, I guess you would call it. Yep. Yep.
But the other,
Biohacking the brain, right? That's
yeah,
all
exactly,
over the
exactly.
new. That's what everybody talks about now. Is just, it's you can take steroids for the body, you can have performance enhancing for athletes, but who, for the people who want to hack into to the brain and have that performance enhancing for work and life in general, this is what it is, and this is what we're talking about.
Yes, exactly that. The other great benefit too of microdosing, and just any type of psychedelics in general, is the mental health aspect. So anybody that has like depression, anxiety, a lot of stress, even addiction issues,
Mm-hmm.
all of these kinds of things can be treated or addressed with microdosing or with other psychedelic journeys or psychedelic trips. And like you mentioned earlier, the indigenous people, and they were using these medicines, and they were the ones that really discovered all these things, and they used them back then, and it almost, they continued to use them, but along the way there, a lot of these things got banned or prohibited
Mm-hmm.
or whatnot. But there's definitely a renaissance period of psychedelic research is coming out now too, and that's the big thing, is there's all this new research that's coming out now because it's not prohibited anymore to research these substances, and all of the benefits are being shown in these studies. The FDA even fast-tracked MDMA and psilocybin as breakthrough. They classify them as breakthrough drugs now, so that they could be fast-tracked through the clinical trial system, because even the FDA, as archaic as they like to operate, they even recognize that MDMA and psilocybin are really effective drugs or compounds that can help treat mental illness and all this mental disease that we have nowadays. It's really, I mean, it's really needed in so many different ways, right?
Yeah. I recently listened to Paul Stamets talk about, he described a situation where somebody had PTSD.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the exact situation, but he was talking about how this person would react in a certain situation, and just really couldn't handle it, and started microdosing, like you're talking about exactly. And it almost instantaneously this person was able to start doing exactly what it was that was causing his PTSD, and with zero side effects, like as if though he never had PTSD before. So, I mean, there's so many things coming out, like you said, anxiety, depression. I read an article on cluster headaches. People
Yep.
get
Yep.
the
Cluster
headaches, and
headaches.
yeah, like and it's amazing how people have suffered with those for so many years, and there's so many different potential treatments that don't work for a lot of people yet. The microdosing that is available with the mushrooms basically cures it.
Yeah, yeah, it really does. I mean, the other area too that's really that's almost mind blowing to me is the ability of these plant medicines to literally cure people of serious addictions. So
Mm-hmm.
there's this movie that just came out, and I saw the premiere of it. It's called Dosed. And I think it's dosedmovie.ca, something like that. You can go and rent it online, but it's a documentary about this girl from Vancouver who was, extremely addicted to opioids, like severely addicted, and she was like basically on her last kind of, last uh, hope at trying to beat it in any way. So she ended up doing. She looked to use mushrooms, but she ended up using something called ibogaine, from an iboga plant. It's a plant from Africa. It's a psychedelic plant, a very potent one to say the least. So she ended up going through this whole process. She got two treatments, so just two doses of this plant. That's it. And I think that was about 2 years ago now that she did that, and instantly cured, instantly. And I
Wow. And
saw her.
she didn't have to stay on them.
No, no, instantly cured.
Wow.
And I saw her at the movie premiere, and she was there, and she's like, she's been clean and sober ever since then. And it's
Wow.
just, and I've heard this story now many times over and over. Even
That,
Paul Stamets himself, when he was younger, he used to have an uncontrollable stutter, and he talks about this story. Um, I mean, I've heard him speak about this story a few times, but he had an uncontrollable stutter. Like he could not like get a sentence out without like uncontrollably stuttering. Like he had speech lessons, everything. He went through all these different things to try and fix it. Nothing could fix it. Then in his late teenage years, I think it was his late teenage or his early 20s, he ended up eating. He read about psychedelics and he was curious about the mushrooms. So he ended up eating, I think he said something like 20 or 25 grams, which is like a crazy amount.
Yeah, that's huge.
A crazy amount. So he ate that. And then he went on this magical journey. And I think it lasted quite a while. But while he was on that magical journey, he remembered that he had this stutter. So he told himself while he was on that journey, he just told himself, I'm never going to stutter again. I'm never going to stutter again. And he repeated that to himself. He said, for a couple minutes or whatever. And then, a few hours later, he came back to earth, so to speak.
Yep.
And since that day, he instantly lost his stutter forever and has never had his stutter since then. And he's one of the most well-spoken human people that like he could go and just speak to, a million people and speak so eloquently about any topic. And it's just unbelievable. And that was from one big dose. So that's that's an area that I'm still kind of learning a lot about myself, because there's not a lot of research on that at all. There's a lot more on the microdosing, but there is a lot of research coming out on these big spiritual journey type doses now. Mm-hmm. And the positive effects are, they're definitely real.
Yeah. You hear a lot of people, and I do a lot of research on just like you're talking about, where people go on these spiritual retreats and they're doing ayahuasca and the mushrooms and all that kind of stuff like that, and it really gives you, and they tell you that you have to be prepared for what you're going to encounter when you're in this, because a lot of people have they go deep. You go deep. You uncover a lot of stuff about yourself. Right?
Definitely. I actually did. I've done one of these spiritual journeys myself, quite recently as well, quite recently too. But I definitely felt prepared for it. I definitely, because I did. I mean, I've been researching this and I've been educating myself on it. I've been taking courses. I've been networking with people, and I've done the full gamut. And so I did have a spiritual journey, and it was pretty amazing. It was pretty amazing, but I definitely, there was nothing negative whatsoever about it at all. Everything was all very positive. But it was definitely a journey, and you definitely want to be prepared for it to get the most out of it. Mm-hmm. You're never going to die from eating psilocybin mushrooms. There's no way you can eat enough to even have it happen. So there's no fear from that side, but people can have, tough experiences, I guess you would say, people would call them bad trips. Mm-hmm. But even coming out of that, anybody that has had a so-called bad trip, coming out of that, something positive comes out of that. But that's the one thing I've been learning about is a lot of, I've been talking with therapists and even gotten training from psychotherapists on how to integrate and how to really get the most out of these guided journeys, or out of the medicine in high dosages in those ways. And there's definitely a lot that you can learn about, yourself, and there's a lot of things that you can break through that you might not even realize that were kind of holding you back in some way, internally, whether it's mentally, spiritually. So I highly recommend that anybody try and have an open mind and really learn about these things, because for me, doing that high dose and having that spiritual journey and only even having one of them, I would say it's definitely one of the most profound experiences of my life.
Is it something that somebody would do one time, or is it something that you would continually experience?
There's no right or wrong answer there. I know many people that have had one spiritual journey, got so much amazing benefits from it, and they're good with that, and that's all they've ever done, and they continue to live a great, healthy lifestyle. and that's that. And then I know other people that do it once a year, that do it twice a year. There's some people that do it a little more frequently. I think I really don't think there's a right or wrong answer. The one great thing about psychedelics is you develop a tolerance very quickly, and they have no addictive, there's no physiological addictive properties to them at all. And that's kind of one of the great things. And that's why they really are a medicine, because if they were like any other drug, like if they were like cocaine or something like that, then it wouldn't be a real medicine. It wouldn't be helping people heal themselves. So I don't think there's a real right or wrong answer for that. I think the one thing that I can tell you is anybody that has gone on these spiritual journeys, they generally have a great amount of respect for the mushroom or for whatever medicine, whether it's ayahuasca or whatever else. They end up having a lot of great respect for the medicine, and you don't really have that desire or need to. It's not like doing a recreational type drug where you're getting high from it and then you're chasing that high again.
Yeah.
Nothing like that. And I'm one of those people that has addictive properties to me. And if I've had my challenges with addiction, like let's just say that, and especially alcohol too.
Yeah.
And yeah, so psychedelics, they are not addictive at all. And yeah, you almost really respect the medicine and I almost would want to do it. I would want to do it less frequently, because it's a real cherished sort of situation and opportunity to really explore yourself and figure some shit out. And sorry, just one second. Sorry, man, I should have turned that off earlier, but
that's all right. That's all right.
So I don't think there's a right or wrong answer to that, but I would say most people do not do it frequently.
That's something that I've been wanting to do. The more and more I read about it and hear people talk about their experiences, it's something that I've wanted to do. Where did you go for yours? Was it in your area or?
Yeah, so this is I'll explain this to you. So that's the thing is, I've been learning about, I've taken even some courses about integration therapy and how to integrate psychedelics into therapy and like afterwards and all that kind of stuff. And then I've done my research and really learned in detail of all the possible effects and possible things that you could kind of come up or encounter throughout your journey, I guess. So to be honest, the only reason I hadn't done it up until this point is because I didn't have a guide that I felt comfortable with.
I hear that's very important, right?
Yeah. So there's just no one that I can think of. Like even, I have friends and stuff, but there's just no one that I just wanted to do it by myself is basically that. So I finally just, got up the courage and, after, kind of learning so much about it, I just said, fuck it. I'm going to do it myself then. And, and see what happens. So that's what I did. I'm not sure exactly how much it took. I measured up until about 5 grams and I took it in like a tea kind of format. And then after 5 grams, I just dumped one more scoop in there.
Yeah.
So I estimate it's like probably about 6 grams of like a psilocybin mushroom. And I didn't have a guide or anything, but like I said, I felt very prepared, and I just lied down on my bed, actually put headphones on like the ones you're wearing right now, just to cancel out all the noise. And that's what I kind of thought about. I thought about that ahead of time doing that. And that's how
you were literally just by yourself in your room.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was, and that's exactly how I wanted to do it, because I don't know, for me, it's like, it's a real personal thing. Like you're going deep don't know. I felt very comfortable. There's nothing, I don't know if the only reason I was worried about doing it by myself was I didn't want to get up and have to go to the bathroom or something. That's the only concern, is getting up. And then because you can't see properly, you might like stumble over and like hit your head. That's the only concern. You're not gonna, unless if you're in good health, you're not gonna, nothing bad's gonna happen to you.
Yeah.
So that was my only concern. But then I'm like, well, whatever. I'm like, I'll just figure it out.
And how long did it last? Like
so it lasted about like 4 hours.
Oh, wow.
So there's like a little bit of a build up, and then about 4 hours. Yeah, it felt like it went by pretty quick though, to be honest. Yeah, I felt like when I kind of like, came down to earth, so to speak.
Yeah.
I felt like it was only like an hour.
Mhm.
Like that's what it felt like to me, but it was like 4 hours.
Yeah. And it's amazing to me hearing people describe their journey, because they describe it in such detail. Because you think about when you're drunk and you're walking around, or even when you're high, you don't remember a lot of things. It's not vivid. But when I hear somebody talking about going on a journey like this, they're able to recall in detail colors and all the minute details of what people said to them and what they saw. And I've actually read a lot of stories where people are able to describe it in such detail, like it's almost like a fantasy. It's like you're reading a fantasy novel.
Yeah, it really is. Like it it really is. It really just opens up your mind and imagination. It shows you what's really possible. It's definitely, I highly like, especially you being in the fitness bodybuilding, because I used to actually be a bodybuilder back in the day.
Yeah, I've seen your pics. I've seen some of your pics.
It's been a long, that was like 20 years ago, but I think, and that's why I love the bodybuilding culture and everything, but I think we all have something in common is we're always kind of looking to push the limits a little bit. We're always looking to push, we're always looking to become better and improve ourselves. We're always looking to push the limits, and
in the gym, in life, in your family, like in everything. It just,
and you want to be
transcends, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's why, I definitely know I can 100% guarantee you, when you do it, you'll have the most amazing experience, because I mean, by the sounds of it, you've already done a lot of research, and I'd say you're definitely have much more knowledge than 99% of people that even do it. So, but yeah, I can guarantee you're gonna just be blown away and be like, wow, this is.
You're gonna have to help me out with this, man. You're getting me excited. I want to do that. That's awesome. That's awesome. So, in terms of obviously cannabis is now legal and they're prescribing it for medical purposes. How far away are we from mushrooms becoming legal for medicinal purposes?
So that's a tough question, because we're dealing with the government, and and the government, is obviously very slow, and and they are what they are. But in Vancouver here, at least, there's some positive progress I see with the legalization. Like in Vancouver, the city of Vancouver has essentially decriminalized psilocybin mushrooms. There was a motion brought to City Hall, to whatever those City Hall or City Councilor meetings in Vancouver by one city councilor, because they heard somebody opened a psilocybin mushroom dispensary in town. And so one city councilor out of how many, I think there's 7 or 8 or 10 of them, one city councilor brought this motion to have, psilocybin, this is the devil, we have to have this shut down and blah, blah, blah. So they ended up, having a hearing about this at City Hall, and a bunch of activists went, and I think even some doctors and some really prominent researchers at UBC attended. I'm positive of that. And it went to a vote, and they voted, it was like, whatever, to 10-1 to basically, forget about psilocybin mushrooms, and they are the absolute lowest of the totem pole in terms of policing them. So in a nutshell, they were decriminalized, and the same thing's happened in Oakland, in Santa Cruz, California, and I think it's happened in Denver as well in the US right now. They've been completely decriminalized. And from a legal standpoint, I think they're going to be legalized as a prescription drug first. So MDMA will for sure, it's already in phase 3 clinical trials in the US for PTSD and for psychotherapy. So it's going to be legalized in 2022, or maybe even 2021, as a prescription drug in the US. And then quickly after that, psilocybin, so an isolated synthetic form, you know, which is same as the mushroom essentially. That will also be a prescription drug in the US because it's in phase 2 or phase 3 clinical trials down there. And then in Canada, I think a firm in Toronto, I know, just got approval, and they just got the MDMA trials for Canada, or maybe it was psilocybin. But there's trials going on in Canada for MDMA right now too. So it will be a legal prescription drug here, probably 1 year after the US. So all of this is happening. But I think what's going to happen is I think there's going to be almost two streams of things. Like there's going to be that, you know, prescription drug route, which I think is still fine because it's way better than anything else that is available.
Yes.
So I think like a psilocybin prescription drug, I mean, I don't really want to support any big pharma, but, you know, it's at least not so bad. But, you know, and then again, so I think there's going to be that stream where people will get their prescription and then they'll get it paid for through, you know, that type of thing. But there's always going to be people. I mean, you can grow these mushrooms in your house. You can go pick them in the forest out there and eat them, and that's totally legal already. You can do that. Like there's nothing illegal about that. So I think there's always going to be these two kind of roots with things, and there's always going to be that more spiritual aspect for some people too. We'll get into, you know, that will really get into that aspect. And I think that's something that you'll really gravitate towards, like, because even myself, like I wasn't, you know, I've never been big into spirituality, meditation, you know, all these kind of things, but just over the last few years, I've gotten more and more into it. Maybe it's because I'm getting older too. You know, like, so
you feel more it's weird because I mean, I've never done it, but still, me too. As I get older, I mean, I'm 43. How old are you?
Yeah, I'm saying 42, going on 43.
So I get more of a sense of a I don't know, call it a connection or like different energies, and I'm more aware of the energies around me coming from certain people, from certain things. And you know, I do meditate and I train a lot, so I think that helps a lot, my awareness.
So you're already raising your consciousness naturally through these, like, that's what you're doing. And through you know, through microdosing or through doing the odd journey with psychedelics, you're just going to take it,
you're going to elevate it
next level, and then you're going to be up here. So I mean, that's why I'm saying I'm super excited for someone like you, because you're already up here. Now you're going to go like boom, like this, like, you know what I mean? That's the thing is, it's so exciting because it's amazing for people that have real depression and real serious issues like that. You know, thank God, like, that they have these options now. But, you know, for someone like you, it's also just as exciting because you're going to become a smarter and better human being. And you're going to spread, you know, that to the world. So there's a lot of positivity that can come from this movement. And I think the state that we're in right now, even like as human beings, as a species, you know, like, we need to kind of do things a lot better, and we need to treat the planet a lot better, and we need to have like more connection with the planet and nature, especially, because if we don't, like, nature is going to kick our ass, or, you know, we're going to be extinct, or the planet's going to be done, or whatever. But I think that's one thing that psychedelics and whatnot, they do. They increase empathy, they increase your connection with nature. And you realize that nature communicates with itself too, and it's like they have a whole language of their own. So it's a
totally different type of energy, man.
Yeah, exactly. And you can feel like, I mean, you know, nature has energy too, right? Like, we're all within this sphere here, you know.
Yeah, that's awesome. So where are you in terms of what you're working on now? What's your next big thing? I know you've you sold you're not part of Pharma Freak, right? You created it, but you sold all that off and stuff. And for the listeners who don't know, Don did create Pharma Freak. I know everybody in the bodybuilding industry knows what Pharma Freak is. They've used it at some point in their career or not.
So I recently sold my half of that to my business partner back in September. And I mean, part of the main reason was because I was becoming so passionate about, like, first off, I was getting so passionate about the health and wellness aspects of CBD and other cannabis, things from cannabis. And that was kind of a personal journey. Like, I mean, I've been using cannabis for at least 20 years now, me, like myself, to treat myself for pain. Like, I have osteoarthritis in my spine. I've had that since my early 20s. And so I've been using it to treat that and anxiety and things like that. So, over time, and when CBD and everything was getting legalized, I really was drawn to, I was like, wow, this could be, like, I could actually be, gravitating to something that I'm even more passionate about. Like, I'm really passionate about supplements and that. But I'm also just as passionate about cannabis. So that kind of drew me to researching CBD and different aspects of that. And actually at that time, that's when I stopped drinking alcohol too. So I was looking for something. I was looking for something to help kind of decrease the anxiety, I guess, from stopping drinking, like cold turkey, completely. So that's kind of how I really started to focus on my research on CBD, and I really started to use it myself to help decrease anxiety associated with alcohol addiction, I guess you would say. So that's how I really got into it, and then I really started to learn more and more, and that led me into researching plant medicine more and more. And I realized this was going to consume me now. And so I still love sports nutrition. I love health supplements, but I'm really more focused now on health supplements and things that can really be used. Like, I'm big into biohacking too. I'm working on a new supplement line called Pro Natural Plus, and our whole focus is biohacking through the science of epigenetics, and so I'm really into that sort of thing now. And they're all health related type products, which I'm a bit older now, so I'm looking at different things in my life. I'm looking a lot more at mental health too. Again, I love the bodybuilding, I love the sports stuff, but I'm realizing that, like, I've neglected, and a lot of people, we neglect our minds and our brains a lot, right? So that's something that's just, like, really interesting to me, and I love learning new things, and with the ability to conduct new research or to be part of new research and just to learn new stuff, it's that's what really gets me going, and that's what really makes me happy in life too. So I've really gotten into all this new areas and stuff, and it's exciting. It's exciting trying to develop new things and keeping myself challenged, I guess.
Right. And just from being an athlete and knowing whether it's the aches and the pains or the struggles or whatever it is, you've lived it and you've gone through it. So to be able to create something to help people overcome that's an amazing feeling. That's awesome.
No, it totally is. And that's actually the funny thing is I was introduced to cannabis through one of my first training partners in bodybuilding. Like, one of the guys, he was from Hungary, back in Toronto. He trained me for my first bodybuilding competition. And, he's Eastern European guys, man. They're so, and I was 20 years old, just moved to Toronto, this guy's thick Hungarian accent. I'm not saying no to whatever weights we're doing. So
those guys are hardcore.
Some of these workouts, like, it was true. Like, it was, like, you almost can't even walk. Like, it's very painful, but you love it, but it's still painful. So he actually introduced me to marijuana. And because I kept, bitching and complaining to him about how much I was always in this pain. And so he said, just come over on Friday, man. Come over on Friday. I'm like, okay. And so he introduced me to marijuana, and it was used as a way to recover and for pain relief. And then I also, I played football in university and throughout high school. And so I had severe neck issues and joint issues there. And that was actually much worse than any of the bodybuilding stuff still. And so then I realized, when I was using the cannabis to treat the bodybuilding pain, I'm like, oh wow, that's when really woke me up, and I said, wow, this stuff is really powerful, because I like, ibuprofen or
Yeah.
anything else would never do anything for a serious pain. So
Mm-hmm.
that's how I kind of got into it when I was younger, and now, so it's kind of, everything's kind of come full circle now, I
Yeah.
guess.
And now you can help everybody else, right?
Yeah,
That's
and that's the
awesome,
thing
man.
is, like, I mean, especially with that's what I'm really passionate about, the mushrooms and the addiction and that kind of stuff, um, because I realized, I was like, I had a real addiction. I definitely had an addiction to alcohol
Mm-hmm.
in whatever way, and I stopped it cold turkey, and I was able to break past that. But and I didn't really know about psychedelics or mushrooms at that time. But now looking back on it, I'm like, oh wow, if I knew about psychedelics and microdosing and big journeys and mushrooms and all that, like, I could have really, I could have really maybe beat this a long time before or whatever. But
Yeah.
so now that's really like why I really speak so openly about, and I always try to mention addiction when I talk about mushrooms in any way, because I mean, even if people are, even if people have a minor addiction to something or whatever, just if that one person hears it and they decide to try, or,
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's that one little bit of help that they need. So
Yep.
I'm always happy to, talk about that. And that's why I'm so passionate about it, because, I wish that I knew some of these things when I was younger.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the most fulfilling part about giving back now and being able
Yeah.
to research and pass the information along, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's one thing that I learned, again, like going back to the psychedelic community, is there's a lot of veterans and a lot of older people in that community, and they're so willing to share and pass on information.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think is, really kind of cool this day and age, because, a lot of people now are like, trying to keep what they have or not share, or,
Yep.
I have this information, I'm going to hold it here and I'm not going to share anything. Well,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, why not, like, do the opposite? Like, you could do the opposite, and let's share all information and be more open, and
Yep.
see how that goes.
Exactly, right. And that's what I want. That's the main purpose for me with my podcast, is that I want to put that information out there. I've gone through a lot of stuff, much like yourself, and I've met people like yourself, and like I've had a lot of mentors in my life that have helped me. And you know, I might someday sit down and write a book, but I like talking. I've been in sales my
Yeah.
whole life. I like talking. So why not get a forum like this where we can share this information and put this information out? Because like you said, about the addiction part of it, I mean, think about what something like this could do for the opioid addiction problem.
Oh,
I mean, it could eradicate it essentially if people knew exactly what this could do. So this kind of information, someone listening to this right now and having never heard of this or anything,
yeah.
could open up a whole new world for somebody.
Absolutely, and that's like I said, that's why I always mention it, and I'm super passionate about it, because all it takes, and like it could just take one person listening to this and they say, oh fuck, I'm gonna try this,
Yeah.
and they could like they could be instantly cured, and
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't happen to everybody, but it can happen, and it
Yeah.
has happened to people, like it really has. So that's
Yeah.
why it's funny that people refer to them as magic mushrooms. That's the nickname they got. But I mean, in a way, they are
They are.
magical.
Yep. They perform magic. Absolutely. Right.
Yeah. So
That's
so
awesome.
they,
Well, you know what? We've covered a ton of information here. I love your energy. I love your enthusiasm towards what you do. I kind of feel like I'm pretty much the same way as you with with the information and the research and wanting to get it out and everything. So I really appreciate you taking the time to come on here today. I'm sure we're going to get a ton of feedback on a lot of the information that we discussed. So hopefully, with all the feedback and questions we get, we can get on and do another episode here in a month or so and see what you're up to, and keep us updated on the new supplement line that you're working on. If anybody wants to reach you, where can they reach you at?
I'm on Instagram and Facebook. My handle is Supplement Godfather. So yeah, that's probably the best place to find me. I'm on LinkedIn too, same thing, Supplement Godfather. But yeah, those are my social medias. Hit me up on there, and
Awesome.
yeah.
We'll put the links up on there. It was great having you, man. I really, really enjoyed our chat. I'm going to have a whole ton of questions for you myself after all this is done. So thank you very, very much for being on the podcast. Again, you can get the Rich Body podcast online at RichBody. And always remember, in a healthy body, there's a healthy mind.